We shall commence this module by discussing about the issues related to the agricultural growth. The critical issues inhibiting sustainable agricultural growth in India are low value agriculture, low cost benefit ratio, inefficient use of natural resources, and an overall deterioration of self-help institutions, both formal as well as informal, and their increasing dependence on inefficient, urban biased and centralized bureaucracy. It is in this context that a well thought out and implemented agricultural policy become important. The fundamental policy question is, how can agriculture continue to contribute to national economic growth and consumer welfare without being penalized in income for doing so? A subset of agriculture policy relates to the set of agricultural pricing policy, while another subset belongs to the domain of agricultural marketing. It is easy to see why pricing and marketing issues are more closely linked to each other in case of agriculture as compared to manufacturing. After all, a distorted market cannot produce the right price signals needed to reach the optimal allocation of resources. Governments usually implement agricultural price policy with the goal of achieving a specific outcome in the domestic agricultural product markets. The objectives of market interventions have been multiple and are often conflicting. Use of minimum support price to ensure stability of farmers' income may harm the consumers who have to pay a higher regulated price. A minimum support price may be a very strong instrument for ensuring sufficient domestic production capable to meet domestic needs in the event of a global supply disruption like incentive price. A discriminatory price policy can also be successfully used to encourage the intercrop shifts in the resource use. Subsidies extended to domestic producers may help them become more competitive in the international market, especially at the time of their debut. Subsidies given for specific farming methods, forestation, land clearance, pollution abatement may encourage the adoption of more eco-friendly techniques, more in keeping with the concept of sustainable development. Price controls. Price controls may be used to support poor citizens without the need to assess people to give them financial aid. But this often goes at the cost of the rural poor who lose out on account of the higher regulated prices. After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the significance of government intervention in the market for agricultural products as well as the complications involved therein, be able to distinguish between the different kinds of administered prices, support prices, procurement prices, incentive price, issue price and their relation to cost of production. Know about the objectives of the agricultural price policy and the institutions responsible for formulating and implementing it in India. Analyze the effectiveness of the agricultural price policy in achieving its objective with special reference to India. Understand the constraints and provide suggestions for further improvement. Understand the importance of an efficient agricultural marketing system in the context of the Indian economy. Let us first discuss the evolution of agricultural price policy in India. In India, the agricultural price policy and its allied instruments evolved in the pre-independence era. The procurement and distribution of major food grains were started and statutory maximum prices are fixed, but they were not strictly enforced. The government depended mainly on ad hoc committees and commissions to investigate the food problem, and the recommendations did not have a lasting effect on the Indian economy. Before the mid 1960s, the activities of the government were limited to the import of grains and its distribution. Till 1964, procurement was confined to surplus states. It was later extended to deficit states as well. In a situation of shortage or scarcity, unregulated purchase and movement of food grains by the private trade led to the indiscriminate and speculative increase in the price by movement of the surplus of producing regions to the areas of high purchasing power. To deal with this situation, the government appointed a commission on 1st August 1964 under the chairmanship of Mr. L.K. Jha to study the price structure and make suitable recommendations. It was in 1965 that the Agricultural Price Commission was finally established with the basic objective of assuring fair price for farm produce and to advise the government on the price policy of major agricultural commodities. The thrust of the policy in 1965 was on meeting the overall needs of the economy and with due regard to the interest of the producer and to the consumer. At that point of time, the highest priority was to maximize the production since the country was passing through a critical shortage of food grains. The most significant aspect of the support mechanism has been the insulation of farmers against a decline in prices. When an overall balance between the demand and supply was in sight in 1980, the Agricultural Price Commission's terms of trade of reference also included the changes in the terms of trade between the agricultural and non-agricultural sectors, and the commission was renamed Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices. The first and foremost mandate of CACP was to recommend a minimum support price with the view to make Indian agriculture a remunerative sector. The purpose is to incentivize farmers to adopt the modern technologies and better the farming practices, raising the productivity and overall production broadly in line with the emerging demand patterns. In recommending the minimum support price, the Commission takes into account a host anticipated and unanticipated factors. The anticipated factors include cost of production, changes in input prices, input-output parity and trends in market price, intercrop parity, effect on the general price level, effect on the issue price and implications for subsidy. It also needs to grapple with unanticipated factors which include demand supply, effect on the industrial cost structure as well as the effect on the cost of living. Let us now discuss the different instruments of agricultural pricing policy. Administered prices, which include minimum support price and procurement price. Public distribution system and its associated issue prices. Zonal restrictions. Minimum support prices are generally initiated to provide protection to the agricultural producers against any sharp dip in the market price following a good harvest. This price floor or reserve price is generally announced in advance of production each year and corresponds to a forward-looking price floors which will ensure desired level of production. In this sense, it is actually an incentive price with the government, standing by to lift surpluses and ensures profit margins irrespective of output growth. Protecting farm incomes in years of abundance through purchase by the government at minimum prices, implying the building up of stocks in surplus years. Protecting consumer interest in years of crop failure. In a sense, the food price acts as a base price in the determination of both agricultural and industrial cost. The logic of the support price leads to the notion of a price range, especially in relation to the objective of dampening price and income fluctuations arising out of the unpredictable monsoons. Procurement prices are the prices at which the grain is to be domestically procured by public agencies for release through the public distribution system. A system of subsidies at both ends, that is at production and consumption end, is viable only if there are compensatory measures of taxation within the agricultural sector itself or elsewhere. This leads to the concept of procurement as a tax on surplus producers in year of poor harvest, when market prices and profits tends to be very high. Support prices may thus be seen as a process of subsidization, while the procurement policies may be seen as a form of taxation. The public distribution system consists of a wide network of fair price shops that are generally monitored by the state governments. This not only ensures that food reaches the needy, but also act as a control on the consumer prices. Zonal restrictions. In condition of scarcity, a state can call for restriction on interstate movement of food grain and is imposed to mop up the surplus production of food from the surplus states. This in turn leads to a dip in the price in the surplus zones. In the absence of these restrictions, the private trade would have garnered all the surplus and sold them in the areas of high purchasing power rather than the high need. Moving on to discuss the issues relating to the agricultural pricing policy in India. Relevance of cost to fixation of prices. The general consensus is that the minimum support price or the procurement price must fully cover the average cost of production. But the problem here is an operational one. Even for a single crop, the cost of production varies not only between the regions but also between farms within a single region. The use of a single price across regions may lead to abnormal profits for some farmers using the cost reducing technologies. So, while the principle may be consistent with the objective of growth, it may do nothing to reduce the inter-regional disparities in income. In India, a uniform purchase price has actually promoted inter-regional inequality. Also, including family land and labor resources in the valuation of total cost increases the price of the produce. Net buyer of food for whom wage constitutes a major element lows because wages actually paid tend to be lower than the statutorily fixed minimum wage levels, while employers of hired labor earn an abnormal profit for the same reason. The solution would be to use a bulk line cost, a minimum cost which covers the cost of farmers providing a major part of the output, weeding out the inefficient farmers. But this would cease to have the same relevance as that based on the average cost. Rental values have been increasing over time because of increasing productivity as well as the demographic pressures. There is a large disparity in the land holding in all regions in India, with big landowners controlling a major share of land and other assets, and as a consequence the marketed surpluses. Rural disparities have grown further with the introduction of the new agricultural technology and has strengthened the economic and political power of surplus producers. Apart from procurement and distribution of grains at set prices, the government was involved in stock building operations. This is the basis for the dual market model. Generally, procurement prices have been lower than the market prices, but both show a strong upward trend since 1960-61, exhibiting a staircase type movement. This behavior can be traced both to weather induced fluctuations in per capita output as well as to the fact that the bounty of good harvest were being used more for the stock building than for curbing price fluctuations. Comparing the procurement prices and cost and trying to see how far procurement has acted as a disincentive to production becomes difficult because of the conceptualization of costs. If imputed value of family land and labor is added to AC at the state level, we see that the procurement price has been greater than the cost of production and closer to the market price in the initial years of the Green Revolution. To the extent that farmers are also free to sell on the open market, prices received by farmers, a weighted average of procurement price and the market price with their relative quantities as weights, are more relevant than the procurement prices alone to a judgment about disincentives, or one may compare cost with the prices that would have ruled in the open market in the absence of any government purchase or distribution. The few studies involving such price cost comparisons show once again that pricing policy has been remunerative in relation to cost. One of the main objectives underlining the promotion of high yielding variety, that is HYV, and new technology was the attainment of self-sufficiency in food grain production and decreased dependence on imports. Between 1968 to 72, the increase in stock was through both imports and procurement. The net impact on economy is general, and inflation, growth, distribution, growth rates in agricultural production, levels of prices and consumption of food grains in particular cannot be easily accessed, mainly because it entails interrelated issues. For a more complete assessment of the impact of price increase or income distribution, it will be necessary to take into account the incomes earned through non-farm activities by wage earners and small farmers. Support prices should be applicable only for a limited number of crops, and their spatial coverage should be restricted to the crops which can be considered as price leaders or crops for which a technological breakthrough is imminent, or crops in a high risk environment where producers need to be given an assurance price. Even here, the minimum guarantee price should be treated as a transient measure. In India, by covering a large number of crops and ensuring a minimum procurement price, the burden on the government has become enormous. There is a need for a flexible approach while dealing with the entire issues of subsidies. An imbalanced and indiscriminatory use of subsidies can generate inflationary pressures and become counterproductive. The beneficiaries also lose the incentive to become self-reliant, but elimination of subsidies should be orderly and done only after taking into account the effect of their withdrawal on the agricultural production, regional imbalances, and the incentive structure of the late users. Food subsidies should be handled with greater care because a drastic cut in the food subsidy through the PDS will be an anti-poor measure. At present, other policy instruments like agricultural trade policy are not fully dovetailed with the price policy. An active agricultural trade policy will contribute to foreign exchange earnings during the time of surplus production and ensure adequate food supply during the period of scarcity. There are two important institutions that are directly connected with the management of the food economy waiting to be revamped. First is CACP. It should be made more professional by including marketing and management experts. The temptation to make it a representative body of farmers or consumers, state governments will rob it of its original purpose. That is, providing expert opinions on matters of food and agricultural issues. A more analytical approach is needed based on an explicit model of the agricultural economy and a deeper understanding of the macro trends in the domestic as well as the global economy. Second, FCI. This needs a drastic reorganization. As of now, the FCI is a centralized, bureaucratic, high-cost apparatus and hence is not able to perform well. Reorganization needs to be done to correct these deficits. Next, we shall discuss the benefits of efficient agricultural marketing system. Economic theory has already educated us about the benefits from an efficient market. Let us look into the explicit benefits accruing out of an efficient agricultural marketing in actual practice. The foremost of them relates to the optimization of input use and output produced. An efficient agricultural marketing system can lead to an increase in the marketable surplus by scaling down the losses arising out of inefficient processing, shortage and transportation of food grains. Marketable surplus is the quantity of the produce which can be made available to the non-farm population of the economy and be written as MS is equals to P minus C, where MS is marketable surplus, P is the total production and C is the total requirement of the farm family for consumption, seed, feed and wastage. Marketable surplus differs from region to region and within the same region from crop to crop as well as from farm to farm. Marketed surplus refers to the quantity actually sold and it can be greater than equals to or less than equals to marketable surpluses. For small and marginal farmers, the marketed surplus is generally greater than the marketable surplus because their need for cash is immediate. This is termed as distress or forced sale and these farmers then buy the produce from the market at a later date at a higher prices. For larger farmers, marketable surplus is greater than the marketed surplus because of their better retention capacity or ability to substitute lower priced crops for the higher priced one. For perishable commodities, the marketed surplus is equals to marketed surplus. An efficient market gives proper and reliable price signals to the farmers to help them plan their production. It provides employment to millions of people engaged in packaging, storage, transportation and processing of agricultural commodities. This in turn produces increase in farm income because efficient marketing guarantees farmers better prices and induces them to invest their surpluses in the purchase of modern inputs and better technology so that the productivity of them may increase. An efficient market leads to the elimination of economic waste, reduce food price and help poor better cope up with the poverty. With better pricing ensuring benefit for ultimate producer and consumer, efficient market helps in increasing the demand on a continuous basis and guarantees a higher income to the primary producers. It will generate external economies as well as by promoting growth of agro-based industries. Many industries depend on agriculture for their supply of raw materials. Now, we will review the status of agricultural marketing in India. Organized marketing has been promoted through a network of regulated markets to ensure reasonable gains to the farmers and consumers by creating a conducive market environment for the fair play of the forces of demand and supply. There is a huge variation in the density of regulated markets in different parts of the country, from 103 square kilometer in Punjab to 11,215 square kilometer in Meghalaya. Such low density of market spread creates problem of market access for small and marginal farmers. Agricultural marketing reforms and the creation of marketing infrastructure has been a prime concern of the government. Starting from 1951, various 5-year plans laid stress on the development of physical markets on farm and off-farm storage structures, facilities for the standardization and grading, packaging and transportation, etc. The number of regulated markets have increased from 286 in 1950 to 7157 in 2010. Producers use different market outlets, commission agents, local traders and farmer markets at different times of the year as a strategy to get the best price for their produce. Farmers' market are especially beneficial for small producers who have difficulty in selling small volumes during the dry season in the conventional marketing system. Farmers' market have influential producers' practices in different ways. It has incentivized diversification of production, maximizing the use of water and land resource throughout the year. Farmers' market have also stimulated producers' adoption of marketing strategies through a better understanding of consumers' needs and preferences based on income, dietary habits and local needs. Factors which affect the producer's capacity to adapt the change include access to credit and financial assets and institutional support across the system. Direct marketing enables the farmers and the processors and other bulk buyers to economize on transportation cost and to considerably improve the price realization. It also provides incentives to the large scale marketing companies to effect their purchases directly from the producing areas. Let us now study what we have done in this module. Pricing and marketing issues are more closely linked to each other in case of agriculture as compared to manufacturing. The objective of market intervention through pricing have been multiple and are often conflicting. This is because the issues involving pricing issues in agriculture are complex. The objective of intervention in agricultural marketing is creation of efficient agricultural markets. Agricultural pricing policy began evolving since the colonial era. Setting up CAPC and FCI constitutes the inflection point in the post-independence period. A number of instruments are used by agricultural price policy to protect the interest of both producers and consumer. The net impact of agricultural pricing policy is difficult to access as it involves the interrelated issues. The least is needed is revamping of both CAPC and FCI. Agricultural marketing in India is plagued by inefficiencies and devoid of any link between the prices received by the producers and the prices paid by the consumers. Nevertheless, some steps have been adopted to improve the system of agricultural marketing. Non-availability of primary data from different market functionaries and secondary data of time series nature from public sources has limited the scope of research in this field.